Librarians Lloyd Paris and Carl Alison are here at the moment with Miss Alison C.D. Smith, an icon in Barbadian theatre. Alison, can you tell us a bit about your early life, family, and primary and secondary school?
Certainly. Now, well, it's interesting that we are here at Whitehall because I was telling somebody the other day, this where we are sitting here in the family home. This land has been in the family for a while. So when I was a little child, my grandmother lived next door, and she had a little shop. And I used to take the goats. I had a little kid that I used to have to take down the hill when I was no more than about 3 or 4. And I used to get rope burns. Or if you ever had to take a little sheep or a little kid out, the idiot things is run and then just wrap the rope all around your feet. You understand? And throw you down. And then when you get up and you undo it now, all you got is rope burns at the back. So she had chickens. I would tell anybody I had a nice growing up because she had pigs, she had chickens. I had sometimes, if you have never actually seen a chicken running about with their head cut off, you understand, when we start killing the chickens on a Friday so that we could have chicken on the Sunday. So this area right here, and then my father built this house on family land in 1968. So the house is now 52 years old. But I learned to ride my bike. I can remember when they had no houses down in Rosettes at all. But it had just putting in the roads. I went to the Ursuline Convent for primary school. And then I went to Queen's College after that. I was bright but erratic. I remember there were actually a classmate of mine died recently, Susan Belgrave, Sir Elliot Belgrave's daughter, and she was in the same form as me. Very bright, very quiet. She and Marie Black. They were very quiet, very studious girls. And they had the two of them pegged to get the Barbados scholarship. Then they had Alison C. She was mad. She was bright, but mad. And you don't know what she can do. You don't know if she can answer the questions. You don't know if she can strip some all of her. That is a stupid question, and I don't feel like doing it. So that they're leaning out the window. I remember they were going, can you all tell me, did she answer the Chaucer? Did she answer? And I remember the girls being vexed because instead of the teachers asking them, how did you do? How was the exam? Them want to know if anybody know if Alison C.D. answered the Chaucer question. I must tell somebody, no, I don't think I'm going to answer that one. It's just dumb and I don't feel like it. Anyway, I must have been in a fairly placid mood that day because I actually won the Barbados scholarship. And I went up to Halifax. Well, not really Halifax. It was in New Brunswick, Sackville, New Brunswick. My father had gone to school there. I was actually named after the university. It's Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. Except that one is spelled with a double L. And my parents spelled mine with one L. And so I went to Mount Allison University. Did not do theatre. Because in those days, come on, 1977 when I left home, a Barbados scholars did not leave Barbados to go and become media actor. So they had all their plans for me. I was supposed to, it is my parents said. They said my parents met with the teachers and made up their minds what my career was going to be. And they tell me that I am going to be an interpreter at the UN. Well, obviously, I had no idea. The rest is history.
So after you finished secondary school, what would the work seem like? I know they had the ideas for you, but the work scene in Barbados would it be?
Well, I don't know. I went straight from QC. There was no working. I went straight up to Mount Allison University. I was 17 still when I left to go to university. They allowed me to have a whole first year off. So the BA was supposed to have been completed in 4 years. They let me complete it in 3. So I was 20 years old by the time I had my first degree. By then, I realized that I was really interested in this theatre thing. So I hitchhiked. I got married at 20. Hitchhiked from Sackville, New Brunswick, and came to Toronto and proceeded to try to get into the acting. And I was doing some stuff, and apparently the Ministry of Education called my father. Until he get that girl back home, she is bonded. In fact, you are bonded on her behalf. And if she don't come home and work off this thing, you owe the government of Barbados $40,000, yeah? So I got a call, and my father used some choice words. He's a man who had no problem at all using words. Juicy, colorful words. So he told me in very juicy terms to get my home before the people come for money. So I came back home, and that's when I worked at VOB for a while. But if you're talking in terms of what was it like in theatre, I don't know a whole lot, like I said before I left. I know there was, of course, Daphne Hackett, Daphne Joseph Hackett, who would have been teaching at Queen's College. I did some theatre there, but I wasn't a joiner. I didn't like clubs and so on. So I did some theatre. Myself and Margaret Allman Goddard did some lunchtime theatre, but there wasn't a lot of work to be had. And then when I came back home and I worked at Voice of Barbados, I did quite a bit of theatre at that point. That was the heyday of theatre in Barbados. That is when Earl Warner was around, that genius of a director, and plays were happening in Queen's Park all the time. Nobody was doing it full time. There was not really a way to make a living. We all went to work, whether we were teaching, working at the post office. I was working at VOB, whatever you were doing. You then came to the theatre after. And I had been totally bitten by this theatre bug. So, of course, I wanted to do this thing full time. And I'd had a tiny little taste of it before I came back. So I had not worked off all of my years. Again, the government of Barbados had plans for me. I had a psychology degree, a first degree. A first degree in psychology is of no use to anybody. You have to have at least a master's. So again, they sat down and they said, she's so young. What we can do is we are going to pay for her master's, which was unheard of because you usually qualify for this scholarship for the first degree. But the government was very, very interested at that point in having counselling in the schools. We're talking early 80s. And they saw the need to have counselling in the schools. So they were going to send me to do my master's. And again, I had my own ideas about what Alison was going to do. And it did not involve interpreting at the UN. And it did not involve counselling in the schools. Alison was going to become a professional actor. They thought I was mad again, but I should be used to it. Right? And so that's what I went up there and I did.
So stepping on from this, any formal training?
None. None. That's what was so nuts about it. None. My degree is I have no formal training in theatre or in film. I have a degree, a first degree. It is a degree in psychology and French. Right? And so that was it. And I do believe that there's some things that are meant to be. One was the timing. In those days, you could still get a little piece of work in theatre without having a fine arts degree in theatre. That was changing. I was part of probably the last set of them that could actually say that they were making a name for themselves in theatre without having gone to theatre school. Because now everybody wanted you to have your degree in theatre. But I never tell it. It's some things are meant to happen. So I'm looking forward in Toronto. Young, got first degree in French and psychology, and I want to work in theatre. Usual thing. I went to a few places to whom I had no experience. I heard of something called Black Theatre Canada. I say, oh Lord, not people. The day to find a walk. They tell me I don't have any experience. Go out and find it. So the usual thing that young people get. How you expect me to get the experience if you don't give me a chance to get the experience? Yeah. And then I got a job. I was working in a store called Import Bazaar. And they sold a lot of macrame and all kinds of, kind of exotic furniture and so on. And I was so tired of this thing. So tired I couldn't. And in them days, they had something that was called, very politically incorrect in those days, it would have been called a manpower office. It would have been labor or something or other. And you could go in there and look for work. Now, we ain't talking no professional work, but you would go in and there were these boards, and they would have these little cards on them. And they would say part-time receptionist, filing clerk, those types of jobs. But you could go in there and you would apply for these jobs. Many of them were temporary things, right? Somebody out on maternity leave, they need somebody to do some filing, they would get on by the manpower officer. So I am so sick and tired at this point of trying to sell people these rattan chairs that I gone down to the manpower office, as it was called in those days, and I was looking for a job. And lo and behold, I see a job that says actor wanted. And what had happened was they had gotten money from Employment Canada, and it was one of those work for young people. So you had to be under the age of 25 and all of this kind of stuff. And they were doing a neighborhood, a culturally diverse neighborhood community theatre. That's how I got work. I answered that ad, and that was it. It was just one job after the next, And amazingly, I could tell anyone that the big reason that I was able to get ahead in theatre was with the theatre company that I found. Well, no, that was the community players. But after that, there was a company called Pelican Players, community theatre. And all of them, it was an all-women's company, and we were doing socially conscious stuff. And after a while, we started getting contracts from government. A big thing was they were bringing in something called employment equity, where they said the law was that if you and I, Carl, are doing the exact same job, I have to make as much as you. Didn't exist before. It was still this old-time thing where, Carl got the children to support. He's a man. So if he's the man, and he have the children, he have to bring home bacon. You only give the little oil that left in the bottom of the pan. He is to get the bacon. And then the Canadian government brought in employment equity. And people were, the workplaces were all upset. It's a big thing. So we did this play called Working People's Picture Show. Basically, what we did was we taught people about employment equity in workplaces. And we went on from there. Employment equity was the big thing. But we went on there and we did lots of shows about. Another one that we did was spousal assault. And we did a lot of shows about that, about partner stuff. We did stuff about date rape. And it was all of these using theatre as a tool for social change. Because it was amazing. You could preach to somebody, and then you can have a piece of theatre where a woman actually testifies about things that happened to her, except that the beauty of it was, in a lot of ways, that this was pure theatre. So you didn't have to take a woman who had actually been beaten and who now had to relive it every time. We would go and interview those women so that we knew that the stories were based in reality. This was not something that we as young people were just making up. But then after that, these were actors who were doing this, and it was some amazing work. And my first main stage job, because you do this and it's not main stage, it's alternative theatre. So my first big job Marty, no, that one wasn't Marty Mara, that was Maya Ardell, was the artistic director of Young People's Theatre, because now remember, this is also the time, this is the 80s, women starting to find positions of power. So where before all of the big mainstream theatre companies would have been run by men, now some of them are being run by women. This woman, Maya Ardell, saw me and said, "Can you do Shakespeare?" Well, I went to Queen's College. But I've never done Shakespeare. And I ended up doing, this was a theatre it was a big main stage theatre, but it specialized in theatre for young people. And I did Catania and Hippolyta and Midsummer Night's Dream. After that, the Stratford Festival, big, you're talking, the most established theatre in Canada, largest theatre, that specializes in Shakespeare. Marty Meredith was the first woman to direct on the big stage out at Stratford. And she put herself out on a limb and hired Alison Seeley-Smith at that point, because I was done married, the first black Canadian, as I had the citizenship, to have a role on the main stage. So there we were, women in two firsts. She, as the first woman at all to direct on the big main stage, and hired Alison Seeley-Smith in a principal role, first black Canadian in a principal role out in Stratford.
This was in the 1980s. Did any racial problems occur? You being Canada, first black white society, had any problems at all?
Problems? Yes and no. No, because Canada's racism was very subtle, very hidden. It's not there in the States. Although I will tell anybody that it was in Canada, out in Halifax actually, where my first husband was from. I walked into a tavern and actually heard the words, and I swear a little bit, heard the words nigger bitch. I went, this makes something fun to me. I never know that I would walk in somewhere and hear this sing. And so my husband says, "Oh, babe, we gotta get out of here." And I said, "Not." I said, "We can sit down in here and we can drink a beer. Then we gonna leave." So we sat down, but that was the baddest tasting beer I ever had because you're frightened. So all the hair so kind of tight. I only sipping, and watching, and sipping. I did not enjoy that beer at all. But nobody there running this bitch out of nowhere. When I finished, then my husband, now he started to relax. I asked him if I want another one. I said, "You gotta be kidding. Well, put the money for the counter and let me go." What? So, yes. But, and it was hard to find roles, not in theatre. Funnily enough, theatre was very open to, because theatre is about magic. So in theatre, we have no problem going, yes, she is a queen. She might be a short, sturdy looking black woman, but we have no problem with that. Mostly we have, and because it was, I remember doing roles in Young People's Theatre, where they would purposely have me as the mom, a white man as the dad, the two kids would be Asian, and whatever it is. And for the first little bit, the audience would cock their head on one side, and then because it's theatre, they just went, "Oh yeah, mommy, daddy, and the three kids," because that's how it works. And it was really important for us to do that because we were teaching racial and cultural diversity and so on. Film, however, it's not do that. It's not about magic so much. Film is about verisimilitude. So you're not going to see that. And I had a hard time with some film roles. They didn't give it to you. I remember I went to audition for something. I think the name of the series was Night Heat. This was early on in my career. My hair was actually a lot like how it is now. Short, very neat, natural afro. I know women. I go in there and I did the audition. I don't think it was a bad audition. Here, the guy who is auditioning me. Well, Alison, thank you so much. That was really good. That was really good. Not sure that we're going to be able to use you this time around, and just a little bit of advice, okay? Not sure the Canadian audiences are quite ready for the natural hair. If you want to get ahead, I would suggest that you invest in maybe a few wigs, because you're really good, you know, but I look at you, man, I ask if you want me to gain 300 pounds so I can sell the pancakes. My mo needless to say, I never got a mo. I was, however, again, the first, they say, Black Canadian to have a recurring principal role on a Canadian television series. And that's when I played Mercedes in Street Legal. There just hadn't been black people who had, of course there were black people on TV, but again, their thing was, as small as that role was, it was considered a principal role, because a principal role was anything where you say more than 10 lines. So it was a principal role, and I was the first black Canadian. I tell you one thing, I always made sure, if you look at any of my suitcases, and they're full of interviews and every single one of them programs from theater, everyone says born in Barbados. Born in Barbados. But I was a Canadian actress. Right now, I think if you look me up on Wikipedia or you look me up on, you just Google me, you're probably going to hear this Canadian actress was born in Barbados. So, but it was kind of cool. I remember, and this was in the time when what we were talking about in terms of this race thing started getting political. And I remember having arguments with even some other actors of color because there was this thing that was coming up at the time called colorblind casting. This was the take. Everybody liked this colorblind casting. I said, no. Not for poop snort. You understand? You can't be blind to my color. How you can be blind to my color? If you're blind to my color, then you're not seeing me. This is more than melanin. This is part of who I am culturally. This is all kind of things, right? This might not, because of this, I may not be able to rent an apartment in a place where I want to rent an apartment. Because of this, if I walk into a store, a white woman will go so, I can go so, and the security can follow me. When the white woman over there teething, but they're following me. So if this is part of who I am, you can't be blind to this. And so we were pushing at that point politically something that was called non-traditional casting. So yes, traditionally, you may not have a black woman or a South Asian woman or whatever in this role, but don't ever be blind to my color. I remember when I was playing, oh Lord, no watch me your names. Love's Labour's Lost, Shakespearean piece. And I was out in Stratford. And with it, I'm supposed to fall in love with this guy Barone, and it's one of these Shakespearean comedies. I don't like his comedies too much. But at the end of it, after all of the things, there was a speech that I said to the guy Barone, who wanted to get into this love affair with me. And I sort of cautioned him to wait, because he might not know what he was getting into. And I remember thinking the director should have made, because she was doing colorblind casting, so no reference was ever made, nothing was ever made out of the fact that this guy was falling for a black person. I was just a person in a Shakespeare play. But what helped me at the end of it with the last speech, I was actually saying to myself, watch you idiot with all of these words and love and so. Wait till you take me home to mommy and daddy here. So it's all right for you to, I love you and I love you. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. This is bigger culturally, socially, with your family. And of course, none of this is in the thing, but as I am saying it, and it actually helped me through that speech, because now it wasn't just no empty, sweet sounding Shakespeare. I was really telling this guy, the subtext underneath was, you got a black woman, dude. You got a black woman that you got to take home and walk through life with. Study it. Study it. Somebody making fun out of me. So it was good. But yeah, so there were a lot of those kinds of battles that we were fighting between, colorblind casting and non-traditional casting as a black woman, and there weren't a whole lot of roles. I remember another time too. Sometimes things were rough. It was just more work. Number one, when I was hungry in them days, I started. You had much money around the place, and you have one meal a day, and you're trying to figure out if you eat it for breakfast, if you can't eat it in the afternoon, if you eat it in the afternoon, you can't eat it at night. So you either sort of eat the one, or you divide it, eat a little bit now and a little bit later, and blah, blah. My agent called, and it was nothing good was happening, but it was a music video. I could have played a music video, but I had to do the boots and the blah blah blah, and I was playing a hooker. The hooker is me playing, getting the money, maybe eat twice a day for a little bit. I said, no boy, because once you start with that, they will typecast you forever. And you will never do nothing else. I came really close to being typecast. Anyway, if you look, there's a movie called She's Gotta Have It. There's and Honey, and How She Move or something like that. All three of them, I played what I call ghetto mom. So some kind of rather brassy, mom who trying to raise her child in the project. After the third one, I went, if I want to come with a fourth at all, I did. And then luckily it was just some little role playing police officer afterwards. But you have to be very, very careful or you will get typecast. So I said no to that one, and I'm glad that I did because something else came after that. Even in theatre. Now this one, at this point though, I was getting work, so I could afford to take my pick because we're talking to Alisons Interview. Watch it. Be careful. This theatre company, one of these big, we call them regional, they're out in the country. Never called my name yet. All of a sudden, they call me and ask me to play Tituba in this play. It's a classic with the Salem witch trials. Anyway, I got on my high horse. I said, because usually in these companies, you're doing more than one play at the same time. So they wanted me to play the slave woman, Tituba. It's a nice role. And Tituba is supposed to be from Barbados. She's a slave woman from Barbados. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I've never done that. What would be my second role? I hope it's something just as interesting. He said, oh, no. We were just bringing you out for that one. I said, oh, but don't most people have two roles that they play? You're a repertory company. Yes, but right now that's the only one that we thought, was sort of suitable for you and your particular talents. It doesn't get carried as oh, for hell. Not that I didn't want to role, it was an interesting role. But then you gonna tell me that I am playing something else. Not that you've gone down the list and the only thing you have decided that Alison, this is after I've done Stratford. I said, no. People went, but it's such a great role. And I said, yeah. If they'd give me that plus Queen so and so, I would have had no problem at all. But the only thing you can bring me up there that I am suitable for is a slave from Barbados. That's it. You can look down nothing else and get you nothing different. I turned that down. So sometimes you just have to decide. It's always a matter of deciding who you are, what your brand is, and what you're prepared prepared to do and what you're not prepared to do. So I've done that a couple of times. I've done it when I was hungry, and I've done it when I wasn't hungry. It's just, I would always, I think, thank my Barbadian upbringing for that. Because even though I was 17 when I left, by the time you're 17, almost 18, you are who you are. People can layer stuff on top, smooth out this piece, rough up this piece, but that foundation is there. And I just knew who I was. So if I didn't feel like playing a hooker, even though I was hungry, I am playing. And if I don't feel like playing Tituba the enslaved woman, because you really, really have looked down every single other role that you're doing for the entire summer, and I can't find that answer. That's alright. That's all.
Well, you would have built up some experience now, and you move on to street legal. What was the experience like at Mercedes?
It was good. It was really good. Again, like I said, that was one of the firsts, and it sort of went from there. I enjoyed that, and I had quite a few little roles after that. It's so funny because we don't get a lot of the film and television that I've done. The government of Barbados CBC did show Street Legal, where I played Mercedes, and they did show the one where I played the judge. This is Wonderland. I begged them for the last, I don't know how many years. There was another television series that I did called Naturally Sadie. And I liked this show. I played the principal of a high school. And it was very Disney-ish. Because at that same time, there were a lot of these high school series that were coming out. But these were very real life kind of thing. People they getting pregnant, people they committed suicide, people were doing drugs, very much a sort of a sign of the times. This one was not. This one was pure Disney. They were just entering high school, and it was squeaky clean. And actually it wasn't even for teenagers so much, because we like to watch things that are about people who are older than we are. So I would have said the sweet spot would have been between a mature 7 or 8 year old, between there and about 12. Because then by the time you got to be 13, 14, it was just like, now it was slightly too big. But I played the high school principal, Ms. Mann, and she was sweet. And this thing, I thought it was a corny little show. I mean, Naturally Sadie is what it's called. Corny little show. And people, I wrote so many autographs for people. People used to literally swarm my car when I went out places. The only other one that was kind of like that, but it was different because they could actually look at me and see. So, I'm talking about you going to the pharmacy and you would see people watching you. And the kids would be pulling their parents along. And then finally the mother would come out and say, I'm so sorry to disturb you, but Jake says that you're on TV? And I said, yes, I'm Ms. Mann. And I'm screaming, and I'm like, I told you, Mom, I want a picture, I want this thing, no. So this happened all the time. I went to an Indian place. The little Muslim girls were upstairs, they have their special classes on a Saturday morning. Well, about 12 of them came running downstairs. I don't know who peeped out the window and see that this man downstairs. And they surrounded the car. I had to sign 12 of them things for these little girls. And I thought, well, it'd be really nice if Barbados would play this one. And also because the target audience was a really underserved part of the demographic. Nobody does television for a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. And it was, anyway, that one never happened. But I got a few interesting things that I did. One of the really interesting ones that I did was doing the voice of Storm on the X-Men, long before there was Hollywood. In the 1990s. Now that was the one where I used to watch grown men. And you'll be talking about a lot of the jobs in theatre are unionized. So these big union men who work in the big theaters, they're all the day, they do the grip, blah blah blah. Or on the film sets, right? The grips and all of this kind of stuff. Well, when they heard you wanna watch grown men drop stuff, the hauling cable, they're done with that, they're moving nothing. So Sam says, you Storm? I said, yeah. Holy bad word. Oh my God. Hey, so them calling over people. It's Storm, man. Yeah. That one was crazy. That one was nuts. Up to now, I wouldn't do it. I don't know why I wouldn't do it. They said it just got a man that every now and then he gets in touch with me. He wants me, although it has been, I don't know how long. I haven't done Storm since like 1994 or something. This man will get in touch and he wants me to do his answering machine in the voice of Storm. The amount that he would pay me keeps going up. The last one was 1,000 US for me to just say, you've reached the residence of whatever it is in this Storm. I won't do it. I don't know why. Not me, I wouldn't do it. Not for 1,000 US, not for nothing. You can keep going up from there. Well, I mean, that's not true. I suppose there's got a number. There must be a figure somewhere where I would have to go use the idiot, Alex. But he hasn't reached it yet. I love my voice work. I love people talk about my films. They, of course, talk about my theater. They talk about the television stuff that I've done, the television series and so on. But the work that I really liked was voice work. Doing voices for animated and that's the Storm, of course, in the X-Men is the big one. I have a book here that I should show you because they did like a nice hardcover book, so I've got my little interview and Alisons Interview. Pretty sure they mentioned Barbados. Probably a dog go and chat back with you do that. But there were some other things that I did too. I love playing Scarlet. What was the name of that series? They were spies. And I did this sort of southern, sexy accent, which she did. There were these young spies around the place. I love that. What I like real bad too was one called Birds, because for the first few weeks of that one, I didn't even say English. I had no words. And I remember standing up in front of the microphone going, "Jeez, no, bird. Oh, people pay me good money to it for this. Look at this thing. Look, Barbados Scholar standing up in front of this microphone. I'm like, somebody gonna put money in my bank account for that. Because it was a cartoon for kids. And it was called Birds, BIRDZ. And it was, I was Baby Bird. Baby Bird, speak a word of English for your first little word. Baby Bird keep every noise in the book. And one of the first words that Baby Bird said was, big butts. Big butts. Yep. Come on, QC. That's it. All of that training. Best school body place. And that's what people pay me money for. I love it. Love it.
Okay, let me bring you back home a bit. I know you did a lot of shows here. Give me something bad and something good.
No bad. I did a fair amount of work here. Desiree is one that will always stand out in my head. Earl Warner. I was living downstairs in the apartment right here. It was during that time where the government I had to come home and work off the Barbados Scholarship because you're bonded as a Barbados Scholar. And I was working at VOD and doing this stuff. And I remember Earl Warner called me late one night. So that was it's a play that I want you to do. You're going to tell me no. Earl, I never told you no. Anything you want me to do, I will. Alright, don't worry. I'll bring the play for you now. You will read it. tell me you won't do it. Oh, Earl, you're so silly, you're so brilliant, I do anything. Like man come across. Stand up one day in the doorway, sliding glass door, he hand me this thing. He says, I'm gonna go drive around, I'll be back. It's not very long, I'll be back in about 45 minutes, and we'll discuss it. Okay, Earl, but I mean, I don't even have to read it. I know that I want to do it. Anything you want me to do, you da. Earl come back in 45 minutes, and he tell me come down there, I'm not doing that shit. You gotta be kidding. Oh, not me, I am not doing that. I cannot do that. Da. So anyway, we did it. Desiree, the first award that I ever won in my life. I've been nominated for a few awards. I have 2 Dora Mavor Awards, back to Best Actress Awards. But the first one that I ever got was actually from Barbados. They used to be, they're trying to do another union I see here again. But in those days, it was MEGOB, the Musicians and Entertainers Guild of Barbados. And MEGOB gave me an award in 1985, I think. 85 or 86, I remember. And that was the first one. Canada followed after that. So it's been good. And then lately, since I've come back, I haven't done a whole lot of theatre. I brought down another one-woman show before I moved back called Cast Iron. Harold Hoyt of the Nation. My mother saw me doing this one. And the play was written by Lisa Codrington, who is a woman of Barbadian descent. But she's not a Barbadian woman born and bred here, but she wrote this play. My mother would have fastened call Harold, because she came up. Mom used to fly up to everything that I did just about. My mother would fly up and come and see it. She called Harold Hoyt. She said, well, you have to do this. Alison is in a play, and it needs to come to Barbados. So Harold Hoyt, the Nation, got together with the hall, the Frank Cullimer Hall, and they brought me down, and we did this piece. Of course, the other piece that I brought down that we did was The Polished Whole, Austin Clark. We brought that one down. That was a co-production between the company that I founded up there, the Obsidian Theatre Company, and the Central Bank of Barbados through the Frank Cullimer Hall. And more, my role has become less of me as the star of the pieces, but me enabling theatre, making sure that a certain level of theatre happens and that young people have a chance to do stuff. So whether it is producing, in 2016, I produced 2 major pieces of theatre, from Bassa to Barrow and beyond, and another one called Mirror Mirror, Show Me a Hero. So my job at that point was to make sure that when the money was out there for the 50th anniversary celebrations, that theatre got a piece of it. Because they were doing, money was out there, we were celebrating. So I needed to know that theatre was getting a piece of that, and I did. Even when I did with the National Cultural Foundation, those heritage tours. Right now, the NCF is known for our heritage tours that we do during October. And what is different about our heritage tours, because people do tours. Museum does tours, all kinds of people do tours. Trevor Marshall and Morris Greenwich been doing tours through Bridgetown for the longest time. What we did was we made it theatre. So when I did the first one, and again, I have to say that people have allowed me to do things that sometimes when they look back, you wonder how they let me do it. I tell the people, okay, I have this idea, right? So we are going to do a tour. It can start this show by Pelican Village, and that will be 1966. And I'm going to take people backwards in time, at night, through town, until we're going to end up in we're going to end up with the discovery of Barbados by the native people when they called it Ichihuganai. From 1966 to where it is BC. And Anybody ask them what you don't know? You know what it is you want to do? I know, John. That's so mad, though. Alright, listen, tell you what. You should sound money, right? Serious. This is what she talked about, because I understand. And they did. And they went and found sponsors, and they let me do it. And I walked people through town with lights. I wanted stages set up at different places through town. We had the lighting towers. We had theatrical lighting. And we walked people through town from 1966. And every time they stopped, I was taking them further back in time until I had my cousin, Michael Chetty Tate, in a canoe in the inner Greenwich, talking about Ichiruganai! And I said, look, the maddest them let me do. And I did quite a few of them. I've done bus tours, I've done walking tours. There's some of them and each time it's about different aspects of theater, basically. You know, some of them I'm really proud of, but when I took people up to Newton Burial Ground, you can believe that Barbados has this burial ground, which is the largest excavated mass burial ground of enslaved people in the Western Hemisphere. If this was anywhere in the States, there would be a big thing and you'd have to pay $50 to go in. Barbados is a little field, a pasture, with some hummocks in it, and a little signboard so big. I tell you, when we walked in, and by the time the third one was coming down, it was dusk. And I brought people out to the game fields with masks on their faces. And it was the Haynesville Youth Company, and Tony Ann Johnson was playing the Ancestral Spirit. I tell you, it was quite something. So, just keeping theater alive in all kinds of ways, you know.
You had a short stint in television and radio. How was?
I did radio. I never did television. All my television stuff is television shows that I would have done when I was in Toronto, television series. I did a few television series. But when I was working in Barbados, I worked at Voice of Barbados under Julian Rogers. So that was quite a team. That taught me a lot. That was when Patrick Gollop was in his prime. That was Patrick Gollop and Linda Waldron and Alison Leacock and those people. It was amazing. I was young. I was 25 years old, and I was with these veterans. I think the only body younger than me who came on after me would have been Wayne Coulson. So that was the era of. To me, it was the height of broadcasting of its best. Between Julian Rogers and Linda Waldron, I just learned so much. So that was my time. So that's how that's where I was working for to work off my scholarship.
So if opportunity had presented itself, now will you pack up and go?
Well, I just recently left my job at the NCF. That one was a really interesting stint. I remember when I first went there, it was very, very different for me because I wasn't used to that kind of working environment. The last time that I had done something where there was a hierarchy and a boss and you had to be at work at a certain time and left at a certain time was when I was 24, 25, the couple of years at VOB. So in between there now, I have been my own boss. I get my gigs, I do my gigs. If me and you don't agree, that's all right. We only got a couple of weeks. And then I can see you again, call you off doing something else. And then there I was at the NCF. Now, for sometime into year 2, I went, I can't get this here, dude. I don't think I can get this here, dude. Back in here, sitting on the same place, with the same people, doing the same thing. Then by year 5, it was the same thing. Will we crop over again? Will we do crop over last year? Will we do crop over the year in front of that? How many times are you going to do this crop over thing? And then after crop over gonna come Nifka. But I got into the rhythm of it. And I loved it. And of course, what was fantastic for me at that point too was a regular paycheck. I was not used to that. I had lived a life where you got work, you made a good set of money. You could make 10,000 so. If you don't work again for the next 3-4 months, and you raising 2 children by yourself, that 10,000 don't go too far. But that's how I was used to living my life. So what kept me there was one, some fantastic people at the MCF. The fact that they gave me my head and let me do some really interesting things. And the fact that I was getting, it was just amazing to me that every month I could count on money being there. That was just amazing. You never ran out of it. Just when you didn't run it out, somebody put some more money back. It was just like, whoa, that's cool. And then just the other day, I realized, well, I've done this for almost 9 years. And there's got to be something else that I can do. So I have plans. There's right now with those heritage tours that I have in my head. We do them as part of Crop Over. Okay, so they're a business model where we can do them outside of Crop Over. So that's the idea that I've been playing with. I also have 2 grandchildren now in Toronto. An eldest daughter who keeps saying, so are you coming back up? I'm like, to help you look after them. Until you have them 18 months apart, that's my fault. So, but, so I'm thinking, tossing around I have some ideas. I have some ideas for theater. I have some ideas for tourism. I have some ideas in my head for all kinds of things. Let me put it out in the universe, if I could find a way where I could spend the warm months up there with my 2 daughters and my 2 grandchildren, and do that stuff, and then come back down here. As soon as that snow started to fly up there, I love the fall, so I would stay up there in time to watch all the colors. I'm a September baby, so there is something about the fall that I find really. But pretty soon after my birthday, at the end of September into October, I be down to Barbados, do some interesting stuff, warm up there, back up. So when I first moved down, that's what people asked me if I was going to do. But then I got the job at the NCF, and of course you can't do that at that point. But now is my chance that I can. I've done some interesting things, and this should be a good time now to see if I can't possibly get my life, some of it here and some of it there. So that's when I'm sending out into the universe and
Give me a philosophy.
just do it. Just do it. Don't study it. Don't doubt yourself. Just do it. That has been my philosophy for so long. There was a time in my life there where they would trot me out all the time as a successful black actress. This is what a successful black Canadian actress looks like. Of course, I laugh because it might have been possible I only paid half the rent. I'm begging the landlord wait till next month so I can do the rest. Or sort of hoping the mortgage date coming up. Oh Lord, let that check from the Canadian Broadcasting Company get to me in time so that the bank ain't gonna call and ask me the questions and I'd be terrible. Or the daughter telling you, Mom, my winter coat is so old. And I'm going, hold on for that winter coat, girl, until that next check come in from whatever. So yeah, that's been even during those times. I was trotted out as being so successful, and they used to ask me about my philosophy and what my process was, and I said, just do it, just do it. I didn't. Maybe it was because I never went to school to study it, so I wasn't following the Stanislavski way of doing this or this way of doing this. You did it. And they had me on the stage doing Shakespeare, and I'd never really done Shakespeare live before. I'd never studied it except since at Queen's College for A-levels. listen, you know, you look foolish. Got people on the stage doing it. Listen to them. Find the music in it. And wherever it is, be true. Say things that are true. Say them with the emotion that it is right. Actually talk to people. Just do it.
On behalf of the National Resource, I want to thank you for such a nice interview.
You are welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you.